November 13th, 2022, a quiet college town was about to become the center of one of America's most shocking murder cases. For university students were found dead inside an off-campus house. There were no signs of forced entry, no obvious suspect, and almost no clues. Fear spread across the entire country. Who could have done this, and why? For weeks, police remained silent. Rumors exploded online. Some believed the killer would never be found. Then, after nearly 7 weeks, investigators arrested a 28-year-old PhD student, not a career criminal, not a gang member, a criminology student who had spent years studying criminal behavior. His name was Bryan Kohberger. But the biggest mystery was only beginning. How did a man who studied crime become the prime suspect in one of the most infamous murder cases in recent American history? On the evening of November 12th, 2022, the 4 students spent their Saturday like thousands of other college students. Kaylee Goncalves and Madison Mogan went to a local food truck after a night out. Meanwhile, Xana Kernodle and her boyfriend, Ethan Chapin, returned home after attending a party. By around 2 a.m., everyone was back inside the house on King Road. Nothing seemed unusual. Friends exchanged messages. Social media showed smiling faces. It looked like an ordinary night, but sometime between 4 o'clock and 4:25 a.m., everything changed. Someone entered the house. Within minutes, 4 young lives were taken. The killer left the scene without calling attention to himself. Hours passed before anyone realized something was terribly wrong. By noon, police officers arrived at the house. What they discovered would shock the entire nation. The investigation began immediately. Detectives secured the house, collected evidence, and interviewed friends, neighbors, and anyone who had seen the victims that night. At first, there were very few answers. No murder weapon was found. No clear suspect was identified. Days turned into weeks. The public began questioning whether the case would ever be solved, but investigators were quietly building a timeline. One piece of evidence changed everything. Surveillance cameras captured a white Hyundai Elantra driving near the house several times just before the murders. Then, minutes later, the same car was seen leaving the area at high speed. Police asked the public for help finding the vehicle. Thousands of tips poured in, but detectives already had another important clue. A single leather knife sheath found next to one of the victims. It appeared to have been left behind by mistake, and it contained a tiny amount of DNA. That small piece of evidence would soon lead investigators to 1MAN.AS. Investigators continued analyzing phone records, security footage, and digital evidence. One name began to stand out: Bryan Kohberger, a PhD student in criminology at Washington State University. His apartment was less than 10 miles from the crime scene. Detectives obtained a search warrant for his phone records. The data revealed something unusual. His phone had traveled near the King Road house multiple times in the months before the murders. Then, during the exact time of the killings, his phone suddenly stopped reporting its location. A short time later, it appeared again as it traveled away from Moscow, Idaho. To investigators, this pattern raised serious questions. At the same time, DNA recovered from the knife sheath was sent for forensic testing. Weeks later, the laboratory returned the results. The DNA profile pointed to Bryan Kohberger. Investigators believed they finally had their suspect. But before making an arrest, they needed one final piece of evidence. Investigators learned that Bryan Kohberger had driven across the country to Pennsylvania just weeks after the murders. The FBI began monitoring his movements. Agents watched his family's home, collected discarded trash, and quietly compared the DNA to the profile recovered from the knife sheath. The match was exactly what investigators had been waiting for. In the early morning of December 30th, 2022, police surrounded the house. Bryan Kohberger was taken into custody without incident. When detectives searched his apartment and vehicle, they collected computers, clothing, documents, and other items for forensic examination. News of the arrest spread across America within hours, but one question still remained. Why would a criminology student risk everything to commit such a brutal crime? And did investigators have enough evidence to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt? After the arrest, investigators released new details about the case. Security footage showed a white Hyundai Elantra near the house multiple times before the murders. Phone records suggested that Bryan Kohberger had been near the neighborhood on several occasions in the months leading up to the attack. The DNA recovered from the knife sheath remained one of the strongest pieces of evidence. Detectives also believed that the suspect had carefully planned the crime, but something went wrong. He left behind the sheath, one small mistake that investigators would never ignore. Despite the evidence, Bryan Kohberger pleaded not guilty. His defense team challenged the prosecution's case. The trial quickly became one of the most closely watched criminal cases in the United States. Millions of people waited to learn what would happen next. The investigation captured the attention of the entire country. Every new court hearing made national headlines. Prosecutors argued that the evidence formed a clear timeline. The DNA, the phone records, the surveillance cameras, and the vehicle all pointed to the same suspect. The defense disputed nearly every claim. They argued that the investigation contained unanswered questions and insisted that Bryan Kohberger was not guilty. The courtroom became the center of one of America's most closely followed criminal cases. Families of the victims waited for justice. Millions of people followed every update, watching closely to see how the case would finally end. Months later, the case reached its conclusion. Bryan Kohberger accepted a plea agreement in exchange for avoiding the death penalty. He admitted to murdering Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogen, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. For the victims' families, the agreement brought mixed emotions. Some wanted a full trial. Others believed that finally knowing the truth was more important. The court sentenced Bryan Kohberger to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He will spend the rest of his life behind bars, but no sentence can undo what happened on that November night. The Idaho student murders changed an entire community. For young lives were taken in just a few minutes. A case that began with almost no answers ended with one of the most high-profile investigations in recent American history. It remains a reminder that even the quietest places can become the scene of unimaginable violence. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy real true crime documentaries, subscribe to the channel for more cases based on real events.